Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 648 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. And our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, there are constantly legal issues that happen within fraternity and sorority life, but there is rarely a legal expert in your chapter that actually understands all of the nuances that accompany these issues. And so today we have a legal expert with us that is going to weigh in on some of the things that happen on college campuses and hopefully provide you with some guidance. For almost 30 years, Donnie Karon, a member of Sigma Alpha Mu who went to Indiana University, has successfully represented plaintiffs and defendants in class action and individual lawsuits. He chairs the American Bar Association National Institute on Class Actions. It is the nation's largest and most prominent nonpartisan class action program for lawyers, judges, and professors. Danny is also passionate about educating our next generation of lawyers. That's why he teaches class action litigation at the University of Michigan Law School and the Ohio State University Moritz College of Law, and taught complex litigation at Columbia Law School. Danny writes a column on civil justice for Law 360, a hugely popular legal daily, and has published articles in countless other publications. His website is called yourlovablelawyer.com. It offers actionable insights on common legal problems and describes pitfalls in a way that everyone can, indeed needs to, understand. Because in law, as in life, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Just thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it is always good to have some legal opinions on the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. We know how litigious our society is today. So I think having you on really clears up a lot of questions that college students have about what happens on a regular basis on these campuses. Now, you've spent 30 years in high-level litigation, and now you teach at the University of Michigan, Ohio State. What first inspired you to pursue law?
I wanted to make a difference. I figured if you want to make money, you can do pretty much near anything. But if you want to make a difference, you become a lawyer because lawyers affect change. I once heard a story that if, God forbid, the bomb drops tomorrow and we all emerge from our shelters 2 years from now, after the radiation has dissipated, we'll need two professions to rebuild society. One is doctors, because people need to be healthy. But the second is lawyers. We need a rule of law. We need accountability. We need predictability. We need to know what we can do and what we can't do. And lawyers serve that purpose. But we've got to serve it in a fun and friendly and accessible way, not in the way that people associate with lawyers, which is they make you want to, jump off a bridge, but rather somebody you can connect with. And that's what I strive to do as it concerns not just civil justice generally, but as it concerns college and university students especially.
Yeah, I love it. And a lot of our college students, they do want to go to law school. I talk to many of these fraternity and sorority members, and they're excited about their next step. What surprised you most when you started teaching these future lawyers?
What surprised me was how smart they are. And not that they get it, they know what we're going to teach, but they have insights and aptitude and awareness that they didn't expect. Like when I'm talking to lawyers, we have a conversation that's kind of predictable. When you talk to a law student, they come at you from left field, from different angles, from different directions, and throw stuff at you that you're not prepared for. And it's dizzying, and it's exciting, and it's cool, and it's enlightening, and it's exhilarating. And you collaborate together to create a better whole together in the classroom, and that they can take out of the classroom. And that's what's kind of cool. That's what's very cool, actually, about working with law students.
Yeah. So if you had to start your career all over today as a college student at Indiana University, what would you do differently?
I walked in kind of clueless. And that's what concerns me is that universities, college university students don't know what they don't know, don't even realize they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what to expect as it concerns everyday college and life pitfalls that await them, such as the consequences of drinking underage or serving underage, of using a fake ID, of cheating, of hazing, of working with a slumlord who takes advantage of you, of not having renters coverage. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, and that reared its head a couple of times in my recent experience with my son's friends and my son actually just a week ago. And these are all things that people have no aptitude for, and they need a little bit of direction and guidance in, again, an accessible way to keep from stepping into this stuff, because once you're in it, it's too late. The goal is to stay ahead of the curve, of the legal wellness curve, and to stay out of this stuff because you've got somebody who tells you what to expect and how to deal with it when it inevitably happens, and it's gonna. That's
Mhm.
what I wish I had a better aptitude for going into school.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, some of the biggest myths that I see within fraternity and sorority life is, we're never going to get caught. We're never going to get in trouble. I mean, you're an alumnus of Indiana University. I mean, you see what's going on right now on campus in terms of hazing on campus, and students are getting caught, and it creates all kinds of legal issues. So, what are some of the most common legal mistakes that you see college students today, or even recent graduates, that they're making?
It's kind of where's to start. Um, I I'll tell here's one ripped from the headlines. This happened just what 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
with all the protests with Israel and Gaza. Kids are protesting, they're picketing, they're storming buildings. They think that because they've got a mouth, they've got a First Amendment right to say whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want, to whomever they want, for however long they want. Not true. People invoke the First Amendment routinely, but have no idea what it says, what its scope, what its limitations are. There are a bunch of exceptions to the First Amendment: obscenity, fighting words, defamation. The First Amendment doesn't even apply to private universities. They just abide by the same requirements as public universities because they're bastions of higher learning. They figure kids expect that, and they owe it to the students. But you know what? They don't have to. And nobody knows anything concerning this discussion at all. Yet they go out there and take refuge in the First Amendment and end up getting arrested, kicked out of school, expelled, suspended, whatever, because they don't know what they don't know. That is a real problem. And I actually have an entire chapter devoted to that discussion in my book that just came out a couple months ago, Your Lovable Lawyer's Guide to Legal Wellness, Fighting Back Against the World That's Out to Cheat You. And I talk all about online indiscretions, defamation, doxing, invasion of privacy, things that students have no aptitude for or awareness of and don't know anything about, and you really, really have to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, it sounds like this book, it's called Your Lovable Lawyer's Guide to Legal Wellness, is going to be an incredible tool that every student needs to go out and pick up. What are maybe three basic legal habits that you believe every college student should be developing?
Not so much every college student as every person, I think, because
Mhm.
we're all legal beings. We all work within this sphere of the law. The law is everywhere. It's designed to help us. And if we don't understand it, we can't get our highest use from it. And that's not fair to us. The first thing I think people need to understand is not to have a victim mentality. Just because something happens to you, it doesn't mean you have to sit down and take it. Literally yesterday, I got an email from Uber that said I was being charged $8.33 for a canceled call from Fort Lauderdale Airport to who knows where 2 days ago. I wasn't there. It wasn't me. I was not going to take it. I spent maybe 5 minutes mining the website, not having a victim mentality, not figuring 833 is no big deal, not figuring, Uber can keep it because added up it's millions of dollars for Uber when they pull this all the time.
Mhm.
And I got my 833 refunded. I didn't have a victim mentality. Don't have one yourself. That's number one. Number two, read your contracts. People never read their contracts. 3 years ago, when my son was an undergrad at American University, I got a call from my son, said, can some of my fraternity brothers call you? They are having a problem with their landlord. Long story short, they got kicked out of their house. The landlord said, just walk away, leave me alone. Next thing he did was to send the guys a bill for $30,000 for alleged damage they'd done to the house. One of the guys calls me, freaking out, as you'd expect. And I said, did you read your lease? No, of course he didn't read his lease. Rhetorical question, right? Send me the lease, I'll read it. I read it, and believe it or not, it contained a bunch of stuff that actually helped them rather than hurt them. An example: when the leasing agent was there to kick him out, she saw a cat milling around the house. And there was a clause in the contract that said, if you have a pet on premises, it's a $150 charge per month. So for the first semester, 4 months, $600, that was part of the $30,000. I wrote in my letter to the leasing agent's lawyer, who actually sent the bill. I said, listen, as it concerns the pet, you don't know whose pet that was. You don't know how long it had been there. You don't know whether it was there for the first time. It's your burden of proof. You've got to prove that the cat was there for a full 3 months or however long of each month to invoke the 150 per month charge. You can't do any of that. $600 comes right off the top of the 30,000. And I walked through the lease and chipped and chipped and chipped away at it. By the time I was done, I said, you know what? They actually owe you $600 for an overdue electric bill. If you want it, come and get it. They never got back to us. That's what you need to do. You got to read your leases. That's two. Third, my grandma used to always tell me, this goes back to what I said a second ago. You can't go wrong with your mouth shut. People don't know what they don't know. They don't know the limitations of what they can and can't say. If you don't know it, don't say it and stay out of trouble. You know who would have benefited from a little bit of legal wellness as it concerns defamation law and what not to say? Amber Heard. Had she known this much about what not to say and what constituted defamation under Virginia defamation law, which is where Johnny Depp sued her, and it was, by the way, it was a defamation, not a spousal abuse case,
Hmm.
she would have wound up about $10 million from what I understand. But she didn't know, and she's no different than any of us. Don't do that stuff unless you know what you're getting yourself into, and that means knowing the law. Stay out of trouble, keep your mouth shut. Those are the three things people need to know.
Well, that's good advice right there. Absolutely. Now, there is an app out there. It's called Yik Yak, and it's just one of the worst apps, I think, known to man. I would love for it to sink into the ocean. But the reality is, a lot of college students use it, and essentially, they're making anonymous comments about people and organizations on a particular campus. And it's all anonymous, so it becomes very hard to track and figure out who's saying these things. So, should a student do if they're being harassed or they're being defamed online?
My daughter, maybe 3 years ago, got into a bit of a dust up online.
Mm.
Somebody sent her a really nasty uh, DM and it escalated and it became kind of scary. There were some threats and stuff. And you freak out because you don't know if the person's across the world or across town or across the street.
Mhm.
So what we did, because I'm in this space, is I know, and there's a whole practice involving internet law. I talked to a friend of mine who's an internet lawyer, and we dug into what happened to her, took a look at the data, and you can, on the tech end, on my friend's end, can kind of figure out a little bit about the demographic or who sent the DMs and something about the context and whatever. And it kind of smacked of a keyboard warrior sitting in his or her basement just popping off, probably from overseas or whatever, looking to stir up trouble.
Mm.
And we concluded that, you know what, it's nothing to worry about. Just pipe down for a little bit and it'll pass. And it did. So you can hire an internet lawyer to kind of dig in to find out as best possible who's behind the harassment. If it derives rather from this website or this app, if you want to make a lawsuit out of it, you can sue the app and maybe subpoena the documents and find out who's behind the post. You can, if it's something campus related, if you think they're on campus with you, talk to the administration. You can call the police. You can pipe down. You can change your, username and handle and all that sort of stuff. It's scary and sad that people think they can do whatever they want. Often they get away with it. But if you push back a little bit and enlist some tools to help yourself, maybe you can get them to pipe down and beat them at their own game.
Yeah, that's good advice. I like that a lot. So you are a member of Sigma Alpha Mu. I assume that at some point in your college career, you went to some party or social event. Probably have seen what that looks like. What are some of the legal risks that come with these parties, these social events, and just hosting people at your house?
Well, one big one derives from a not as big one, but big one just the same.
Hmm.
When there's underage drinking or drinking at all, whether it's serving or drinking or both, and there's a lot of law that goes into that because that's not campus law, that's not fraternity law, although there are a lot of guidelines and codes of conduct on it, but that's state law. I mean, you cannot do it. I don't care where you are. I don't care that you're in a fraternity house or in a private house or whatever. You're under 21, you can't drink. And if you do, you've got to accept the consequences that derive from that. One of which could be if you have a house on campus, let's say, or off campus,
Mhm.
and there may be three, four guys who rent it, and you're having a big party, or a fraternity house, you're having a big party. We had a huge house at IU. I mean, we had one of the biggest houses on campus, like 150 members. We'd have huge parties. And if somebody hurts themselves, someone falls down the stairs, someone breaks their nose, someone breaks their leg, God forbid somebody dies, what do you do? So let's scale it down and talk about something easier and more accessible. Three guys, they rent a house, have a party, somebody gets hurt. Yeah, and you get sued. And you're going to get sued because everybody's suing everybody these days. The parents are going to get involved. You're getting sued because they want to get paid for the medical bills and it was your fault and there was a broken banister. You didn't, wipe up the spilled beer, whatever. Or maybe you did, but who cares? You're getting sued anyway because it's your house you're renting. Who's paying that bill when the verdict comes in for $500,000? Well, you better have renter's insurance. Now, you don't get it. The rental company doesn't cover you. You got to get it yourself. It's privately placed coverage. And often you've got to let the renter know that you have it. Often the renter forgets and doesn't care. That doesn't mean you're off the hook. So for instance, scaling it down a little more, literally 2 weeks ago, I get a text from my son at 6:45 in the morning. It's a video of the ceiling having collapsed, water cascading in his apartment in Washington, D.C. There's a big plastic trash can, buckets, pots, all the stuff catching the water. I'm like, holy crap, what's going on? The hot water heater we learned upstairs blew up and the water's cascading down. And it's in my son's roommate's bedroom, not his. Well, my son had renter's coverage, so had anything happened to his stuff, he'd have been covered up to 100,000, under I would think up to $50,000 worth of personal articles and $100,000 of personal liability, meaning had somebody been hurt because the ceiling fell on a guest's head, right? That's where the liability part comes into play. Somebody falling down the stairs, roof falling on your head, you need coverage, liability coverage. It's part of a renter's policy. My son's roommate didn't have coverage. So he was self-pay for all his destroyed stuff. I ended up getting it all paid for by the rental company because I wrote the right email because I know what to say, but otherwise he'd have been self-pay. Now, my son had renter's coverage because 2 years earlier than that, when he was home for holiday break, winter break, one of the maintenance people came in, tried to fix his bathroom bathtub, left it running, closed the door in his bedroom. Everything was overrun with mold. Everything was ruined. He didn't have renter's coverage. It was all self-pay, like $10,000-ish, maybe worth of stuff if you did the math with electronics and stuff.
Hmm.
I ended up getting the company to pay for that too, but that won't happen every day. You need renter's coverage. It's $200 a year. You usually get 50 grand, 30 grand, whatever for your stuff, 100 grand for injuries. And it's a no nothing, who cares, never mind spend. Always do that. You will always be protected.
Wow.
Long
Great
answer, short
advice.
question, super important stuff.
It is super important. There's no question about it. We'll talk later about a huge mold problem that we encountered about a year ago at a chapter house. And boy, oh boy, the bills can escalate very
Oh
quickly
yeah.
when you're talking about mold in a fraternity house. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Now, a lot of the students who are listening right now, many of them are signing leases, they're signing contracts. Maybe even they have an internship this summer and they're signing agreements there. How can college students protect themselves when signing all of these documents?
It's not so much a matter of protecting yourself as it is becoming aware and informing yourself. Because what's in there is in there. You ain't changing it. You're not marking it up. They're not initialing your changes. Forget it. You don't like it. Don't work there. Don't rent the house. But you at least deserve to know what's in the lease. So had my guys read their lease, they'd have known about the pet clause. They'd have known about other stuff. Best example I can give you. It doesn't derive from a college situation, but consider this. And this is actually showcased in my book. It involves a guy named Ronald Corwin. He's a dude who rented a bike in New York City, one of those bike share things, like you put on the app and everything.
Sure.
He rents a bike. He doesn't wear a helmet, takes a header because he hits a curb coming out of the place, cracks his head open, and he's gushing all over. And he sues New York Bike Share because the configuration was screwed up. There shouldn't have been a curb there, so he says. Well, in the rental agreement was what's called a liability waiver that says, except for in instances involving our gross negligence, like really, really bad negligence, like out of your way to hurt somebody,
Mm.
we're off the hook. Regular negligence, like a curb there, maybe, maybe not, not on us. Okay. You're self-pay. He sues him anyway, and he ends up getting his case dismissed because the liability waiver holds up. He couldn't have changed it. Had he not liked it, don't rent. But what could he have done differently? He could have worn a helmet. If you know there's a liability waiver in a bike rental contract, and that if you take a header, you're self-pay, wear a damn helmet. That's an easy one. Make changes based on what you read in your contracts as best you can to account for the possibility that something's going to go south because it usually does.
Mhm.
But you can't know any of that stuff unless that is you read your contract first. And who wants to? Because they suck and they're boring and they're long and you're scrolling and it's the worst. But you know what? I'm sorry. You get what you pay for. Do it anyway. You'll be glad you did.
Absolutely. Now, we talked a little bit about serving alcohol in the fraternity house and some of the legal issues that revolve around underage drinking at the house. Are there any other legal issues that student leaders and fraternities and sororities should be aware of?
Well, of course, there's hazing.
Hmm.
Shouldn't haze, serves no purpose, does no good. Does it build brotherhood? Does it build sisterhood? Does it lean into tradition? The tradition is probably 2 years old because nobody knows from what happened before that. Not really. You know what? You want to have a nice event for your pledges. Maybe a trivia night. Maybe you build something together. Maybe you cook something together. Maybe it's a fundraiser. But something that actually matters. You don't have to beat the crap out of each other to build a brotherhood or a sisterhood or a connection. I mean, that's just the dumbest thing ever. Because when you do, let me tell you, some parent finds out about it. If you're lucky, they only tell nationals. If you're unlucky, they tell the administration because you're kicked out of school. And if you're super, super unlucky, they tell the cops and you go to jail. All for nothing because you had to binge drink at some stupid pledge event. I mean, for what good, right? When you could have had a trivia night and had a much better bond develop. So I know, listen, I'm the parent, it sounds, it's stupid or whatever, but you know what? You know it's not stupid. You know it's the right thing to do. And even if you don't know, you know what the consequences are if you get caught. And that's just objective truth, undeniable. I mean, I'm sorry, you can get sued too. And if you don't have renter's coverage, if this is even covered, which it probably isn't because it's what's called an intentional tort, intentional acts aren't covered under homeowners policies, you're totally, totally, totally screwed like four different ways, all because you didn't have to do something you chose to stupidly do. How's that for a bit of a guidance in terms of fraternities and sororities?
You're right. That is an intentional tort. That is most likely not going to be covered by your policy. So absolutely right on the dot. Thank you for saying it. Yeah, all the research out there that I've seen, all of the research basically says that no, hazing does not promote solidarity in your fraternity. They actually resent you for it. And
Can I
if
tell you quick?
you,
Oh, you know
yeah,
what? To that end, I'm sorry.
yeah.
There was a guy who hazed me so bad that when and he's a Cleveland guy. When we moved from Chicago to Cleveland, and didn't know anybody in Cleveland, my wife made plans with his wife because she was friends with her from high school. She said, "We're going out with these two, on Friday night." And I said, "I'm not going anywhere. There's no goddamn way I'm going out with him." I was still pissed off after 30 years.
Yep.
And after like some uncomfortable silence at dinner, he finally put his fork down and said, "Danny, I got to tell you, I really did some things in school that I'm ashamed of. I made some mistakes. I was a different person then. I'm sorry. I wish I could take back time, but I can't. And I want to apologize to you for things I did and to let you know that I've grown from them and that I'm better than that now. And I want to show you that going forward. I'm really sorry." I said, "You know what? You're an asshole." And I just went off on him because I needed to get that out after 30 years.
Yeah.
And then I calmed down and said, "You know what? But I accept your apology. And we're really good friends now. But you are right. You remember that stuff.
Yep.
And had he not closed the loop, I'd still be pissed and for
Yep.
no good reason."
Yep. I'm still pissed after 30 years to the guy that did that to me. Haven't
Mhm.
spoken to him since, and he hasn't apologized yet for it. Yeah, I'm the same way. All right, you're not going to apologize for it. That's fine, but I'm still going to remember that until
Yep.
that happens, that apology comes. And I haven't heard it yet, so I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
So the what the research actually says is if you want to build solidarity in your fraternity, go and have fun. And that's exactly what Danny is talking about. Fun things, whether it be a trivia night or working together to build something, anything that's fun, yes, then you will get the solidarity. But if you think mental or physical abuse is going to get you to solidarity, I'm telling you, the research says it's absolutely untrue. And here you have two alumni here that are talking to you today that are telling you after 30 years, we still remember who did it and still
Yeah.
hold bad
Right.
feelings to that person.
Yeah. But why listen to us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you hear this, I sound like my dad, and it's like, you're like, ugh, whatever. But it's, it's so fundamentally true. And you get a kid in a room by himself or herself, and they confess, like, "You're right, it is true. I guess you're right." As all the guys did at this one fraternity I was counseling, and they revamped their leader what is it, education policy,
Mhm.
and they claim they factored all that out. I think they have. I hope they did.
I hope they did. You wrote this book. I'm just kind of curious. I mean, what inspired you to write this book? It's called Your Lovable Lawyer's Guide to Legal Wellness. I mean, you could
Yeah.
have just continued representing people. Why did you write the book?
Boy, over my 35 years in practice, I've observed what I call a societal bias against access to justice, where people that deserve it the most really tend to get it the least. And that means a couple things. It means people don't know how to detect that they have legal issues or problems. If they do, they don't know how to resolve them. If they do, they can't find a lawyer or pay for a lawyer or understand a lawyer, much less with this language we have, legalese, makes you crazy. And I didn't think that was fair. So that was one observation that led to the book. Related to that was that I took a look at the kind of daytime TV and internet landscape, we'll call it, and I noticed a couple things. There's a ton of emotional wellness content out there, like Dr. Phil talking about how to be safe and sound in your mind and body, right? And there's a lot of financial wellness content out there too, like Jim Cramer, Susie Orman, how to set up a 529 for your kid's college or a 401k for yourself. But where it concerns this third essential wellness bucket, legal, which by the way, when it tips, it spills into the other two because you freak out and you go broke. There's nothing there but these exploitative courtroom shows that prey on people's misery and vulnerability, and that they show up and train the cameras on them after things have fallen apart. So I wanted to slide the dial back. And in the way you go to the doctor for physical to keep from getting physically sick, I wanted to give people the tools they need to administer for themselves a legal physical to keep themselves from getting legally sick. And that's what spawned this whole Lovable Lawyer brand and the book and the keynoting. And I'm keynoting colleges and universities now with college-centric messaging about the top 10 things you need to know to stay legally safe in college before stepping in it. And we've touched on a bunch of them: the drinking, the hazing, the cheating, the slumlords, the chat GPT. I mean, to what extent you can use that, all that, if any, all that stuff. And it's a cool address because there's just I think it's such a vulnerable audience. Even if they think they got their stuff together, I mean, come on, none of us does, much less coming out of the house for the first time into the real world and not knowing what perils and pitfalls to expect in a toxic brew of, and who knows what, like a college campus. Um, put all those thoughts and themes together, and that's what's leading me out of chasing lawsuits and fighting with lawyers all the time to giving a real proactive, helpful, essential, enduring wellness message to people who need it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm grateful that you wrote the book and it's out there. College students can go out and pick it up. It's called Your Lovable Lawyer's Guide to Legal
Audiobook
Wellness.
too, by the way, just came out
Yeah,
last week.
yeah.
If you don't want to read.
Sounds like for sure we need to go and pick up that book. So, how can students connect with you if they have legal questions, and where should they go to buy the book?
Well, you can get the book on Amazon, of course, and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Target is pretty much everywhere. In terms of reaching me, I'm at Danny at yourlovablelawyer.com. I can't, and you mentioned, I think you might have mentioned advice. I can't give advice. It's unethical to give advice. I don't know your situation. I necessarily can't know what best suits you. So I can't give it, but I'm providing legal guidance and information for you to take with yourself and do with what you like. And if any of those themes or thoughts are on your mind, I'm always happy to talk to folks. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I'm here. There's no we, it's me. I'm here to solve problems and help people make their lives better. And college and university kids are a great community and a community that needs it. So I'm happy to help.
Fantastic. All right. So legal guidance with Danny. Make sure you can go to the website. That's certainly one place you can go. It's yourlovablelawyer.com. And then go and pick up the book, Your Lovable Lawyer's Guide to Legal Wellness. You can pick that up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And Danny would love to chat. So feel free to send him an email and he will absolutely get back to you. Danny, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, especially the work with the fraternity and sorority members. We certainly appreciate the support, and that's all I can say is thank you.
It was such a treat. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. And to all of our fraternity and sorority listeners, if you learned something from Danny today, I want you to share this episode. Drop a link with your chapter in a group chat or just share it on social media so other fraternity and sorority members can listen to what Danny has to say. You never know who needs to hear his message today. So it's really important that you share that. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.